Thanks a lot. So I'm Juho Vepsäläinen. I run a small limited company. I don't have a careers page. I'm not hiring. The funny thing happened earlier this year. I think it was in March. So I was interviewed by this guy from Aalto University for his PhD thesis. And then I was proposing that maybe I would even have a topic for one, because in the past I just did masters. I didn't do PhD. And then he introduced me to his professor, and the professor was excited, and then some other guys were excited, and then I got to a conference, and then I did literature review, and then I found out that the future is mostly static. So in essence, I think we're reinventing the web again. So that's something I can see happening. And yeah, so I think after this session, I hope you agree with me. I mean, it's a little controversial to say, but yeah, I think there's some merit to this. So what to expect? First, we go through a brief introduction to the topic, so we earn the same baseline, so we know what happened in the past. But I think with this audience, or with you people there, I don't have to spend so much time on that. Then we discuss content management systems, static set generation, and then related work, what has happened in recent years. Then this research part is more academic, but it's more about what I would do in case I get to this program. First, introduction. So what happened if you consider the history of the web? What happened in the past? So this was something that was surprising for me. Is that the first content management system? It was invented in 1985. So people they had this problem for a long time. And then we had the first HTML browser, 89. And then there was Tim inventing the web. That was a huge step. And then 1995, we got front page. I think it was around 1996 or so that I was using front page to make my first website. And then 1995, JavaScript. So Brandon spent around 1 week. And now we have this great language that everybody is using. And then first single page applications, I think it was Slashdot. They came available around 2002. So that's actually a long time if you consider it's like over 20 years of single page apps. Then Jamstack 2015. So I will discuss Jamstack later so you understand what it's about. Most likely you know it anyway. A couple of years back we had this islands architecture. That sort of it's still not a big thing. Not a lot of people know it, but it was sort of invented a couple of years back. And then there's a typo, but the idea of transitional web applications was proposed last year. Then how it all works. So we have some like server somewhere and maybe some database clients. Then we have the web and so. But I mean, that's the basic idea that you send some data around from you ask the server, give me this, they give you that. But that was sort of the background. Then let's consider content management systems. So the way I see it is that CMS systems, they were invented for collaboration. So you have different types of people. You have like developers like us. Then you have designers. Maybe we have some in the audience even. So some people that really understand CSS and design and all that. Then we have the people that are doing the content. Then we have the people that have to administrate the system. We should not forget that there are actually users. So the users that come to the website access the content. But the CMS, it was really designed to make it possible to collaborate. And there's a lot to CMS products. So you have like the basic things, collection management, publishing. Inside this, you have specific steps. So it's really a lot to cover if you start digging into this market. But it's a lot of these features that you have in CMS products, and it's all related to this roles of people what people have to do. First of all, it enables collaboration. So different people can work together. Then developers can save time. You take some WordPress, you take some plugins, you put a site together very fast. Many major players exist in the ecosystem. So if you look at the market shares, it's amazing how many users something like WordPress has. So you have like 40% of the internet powered by WordPress, which is really a lot. But then at the same time, in most cases, you need some kind of server with something to maintain. There might be some security updates you have to get in place. So you actually have a site running and so. It's not always trivial to understand. So there's a lot of complexity because of these facts that I mentioned. And sometimes what happens is that you simply use a hammer to kill a fly. So you simply get too much. You have something that's way too much for what you need. So you get this unnecessary complexity that might not be so nice to have. One of the improvements we saw that happened the past few years was the introduction of headless CMS. So in this approach, what we do, we treat CMS as like the source of content. So like you have some kind of user interface where you can enter data model and enter data, and then it's exposing APIs. So maybe I get GraphQL API, REST API, or so, and then you do integration. Integration with another system that could have a static site generator that's picking up the content from this CMS. Or you might have a mobile application that's taking the content from the CMS. So you get actually a mobile application running on the same data. Or you could generate some graphics. I mean, it's a very powerful approach. It's actually something we use for the React Finland site, because in the past I understood that we cannot have this content coupled to the site. Instead, we have to push it to an API. So I can do this do website, I can do mobile site, I can do I did graphics, I did badges. It's something that sort of comes to you naturally. I mean, it makes sense to have a content API. But that's about CMS. I will get back to the topic a little bit later, because then I explain how it goes together with static site generator, static site generation, and static site generators. So what's a static site generator? It's a system that consists of the following things. So normally we have a templating language, so we can do layouts and theming. We have a markup language for creation of content. In most systems, it's Markdown. But of course, you could have something else as well. In most systems, you have a local development server, so you can actually see what you're doing. And you can test what you're doing before you actually build it. So it's common that you have this development environment and build environment. And if the people doing the static site generator did their work well, it's about the same, or you should get the same result from this build. And then finally, there's the compile process that takes all these different files and actually gives you static HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So that because that's sort of the definition that I mean, you want a static site. And first of all, why did we end up with these static site generators? It's because people they didn't like to write HTML and all this by hand. They wanted a little bit of abstraction for all this. So then we ended up with this SSC systems, no static site generators. And then Jamstack. So what's up with Jamstack? So now we see, we have this CMS. So we might have headless CMS running, have templates, the compilation step. In compilation step, we combine the templates with the content from the CMS. And then we end up with a static website, which we deploy to a CDN. And on top of this, could consider that maybe that there's like a service level, that because the site is static, but what if you need authentication? What if you need forms? Well, you have to solve it somehow. That's something you glue on top. And these days you have strong offerings, platforms like Netlify that provide these services out of the box. Or you could use something like Cloudflare to write your own logic. I mean, and so I'll show you some options here. And how does it compare to the traditional web? So in the past, you had these clients that discuss with servers, that discuss with another servers, that discuss with database servers and CMS. It can be complex, but in Jamstack's point was to simplify a lot. So you get a static compilation output, which you push to CDN, and optionally integrate with services. But even this is not perfect. I mean, it has some, like, let's say, gaps in it. But it's something that I guess you experience when you use the approach. But consider SSG pros and cons. So first of all, it's very, very fast. So if you have something static, you need a static file server. It's extremely easy to scale. So you get this point with CDNs. So it's very scalable, very resilient. So it's less likely to be like destroyed by some security hole than a CMS, because the server by definition or the implementation can be much simpler because it's just hosting files. So there's the security point. It's very available as well. You get automatic versioning because maybe you work with Git and you push your work to Git. All the changes, the version. That's a nice side effect. Very easy to host. All you need is a static host. Find a static host, push your files there, you're done. But at the same time, it's not all good. So a lot of this tooling that exists, it's very much developer-oriented. It was designed by developers for developers. And that's not always a good thing, because if you have to work with other people like designers or people doing the content, I mean, they get frustrated if they have to work with code. And then in many solutions, you can have this recompilation cost is quite high. So let's consider you have a site that has tens of thousands of pages or a million pages. You do one change and you have a naive implementation and you would have to recompile everything. But that's at the same time, it's a problem we can solve. Well, by definition, everything's static. So where you struggle is this dynamic use case or anything that's a little bit dynamic. And that's where I believe that you have a lot of potential for improvement. So let's consider related work from past years. One of the big things is maybe edge computing. So that's something, if you look what happened this year. So we have Cloudflare and Netlify and Deno. I mean, they were launching their edge offerings, and Versal, of course. So they were launching their edge offerings for people. So you could take a static website, and then what you could do, you could shape a request. So somebody's sending a request, you can decide, yeah, there's authentication in between, or yeah, wait a minute, let's do image endpoint. So I want to do a cached image endpoint, and I want to do thumbnails. I want to do, I mean, a lot. You can do a lot with this. So it's sort of up to your imagination. And one of the key points is it's pushing computation to very, very close to your consumers. So at the same time, it's very, very, very fast as well. And it's a space where a lot is happening for the web at the moment. But at the same time, it's not a very new idea. Edge computing has been existing for a long while. But it's just that the web developers, they sort of became aware of it just a while ago. So then one thing we can look at is the server approach compared to single page apps and so this static site generation. So all of these, they have sort of their sweet spots. So server-side rendering, it gives you pre-rendered HTML out of the box, which is cool for SEO and so. You get the same with static site generation. And with single page apps, it's not so simple. I mean, you could do it with hydration approach, but it's a little bit extra work. Then you have this refresh issue in classic web apps. You will have to refresh the whole page. Yeah, and that's something we eliminated with single page apps. Maybe could do it on top of the static sites as well. I mean, that's something like I think it's possible. But then you have this issue of forms. Yeah, of course you can do it in server-side rendered apps, single page apps. With static site generation, yeah, you can do it with a service, but not, of course, out of the box because you don't have a server. But at the same time, I think that's ideal use case for using edge worker. So we'll do the worker in a worker, it will handle form, do this form logic, and push it to some database. So it's something that's easy to do. And then you have this offline support. Well, single page apps, it's sort of in the definition, not so much in server-side rendered apps. Could do it for static sites. So one thing that happened last year was that Rich Harris was proposing this idea of transitional web applications. So what's a transitional web application? Well, it's like, let's take the best ideas from single page apps. Let's take the best ideas from traditional web, and put them together and see what we get. So first of all, let's go with server-side rendering. So we get fast initial loading times. You don't have to wait for JavaScript to run. You don't have to wait for hydration. Then, because by design, transitional web applications, they work without JavaScript. So the point is that you get experience without JavaScript. That's about the same as with JavaScript, but with JavaScript you get more. But you still get experience. You have some baseline. So you don't have a broken site or broken app without JavaScript, which is important. Because this way you get consistent experience and accessibility as a built-in feature. So I think there's some quite interesting implications with the TWAS. So cool to have a site that or app that really works out of the box, and then if you enable JavaScript, it works even better. This reminds me of progressive enhancement, which is where the point was that you will have content first, on top of which you build presentation, and then you add JavaScript or other scripting. But this idea from 2008, it was more, let's say, more constrained. So TWAs, the scope is a little bit bigger, I guess. And then, like 1 month after Ryan Carniato, who is coming to Finland in September to Rec Finland, he discussed this idea of disappearing frameworks, because so far with frameworks like Angular or React, you always get some cost because you have to load the framework before it can even do hydration. So you end up waiting. But with disappearing frameworks, you actually twist the situation around. So you get almost zero cost, and they vanish from the application. So there's the design is very, very different with this. So you get complete contrast to the current breed of frameworks available, because you lose this upfront loading. And another point was that you lose expensive hydration. So when you twist things around, you end up with something that's consistent with ideas from Rich, and you start thinking about architecture in a different manner. I actually did a little experiment. I wrote my own little library called Sidewind. That's it's little state container that lives inside HTML, and I figured out a good way to do hydration. I mean, it's figuring out its state based on what you put to HTML. But I can show it later if somebody wants. But I think there's a lot of potential for exploration in this space. And then this islands architecture. What's up with islands? So let's consider this is our like shop or so. And then we have different islands. Some of this page is static by definition. So yeah, there's advertisement, this came from the server. There's footer, this came from the server. Maybe header is static as well, but it could be a little app by itself. And maybe in the sidebar we have some interaction, something you can use. Then you will apply a little bit of JavaScript to make it interactive. And carousel it's something you cannot maybe do so easily with CSS and HTML. So we'll apply a bit of JavaScript to that. So it turns out that it's not the worst idea, because if this page, let's say it's a really long page. Okay, you have some logic somewhere in the page, and what could happen is that when you scroll, and then you have this intersection observer that triggers, that loads the JavaScript logic. So you can start loading logic when you need it. Not everything at once, but you can combine it with these good techniques. And if you want a case study, you should look into Etsy. So Etsy had this problem that they have a two-sided market. So they have a lot of users that want to buy these handicrafts, and at the same time they have these people that are selling the handicrafts, or the vendors, and these have different requirements, because for people coming to the site to buy something, they want something that's fast. and this content is very, very static by definition. But at the same time, these people that are selling the stuff, the vendors, they need a very highly interactive view, highly interactive website. So now we have this problem that you cannot really use, like you don't want to use React for everything, because you want to keep this user-facing part very, very fast. But React is like it's very much perfect for this dynamic use case. So what they ended up doing, so they have this PHP application, and they used so in the past they had jQuery for these users, and then they had React app for the vendors. So what they did instead, they changed the architecture so that it's island-based, and they used Preact for interaction, and everything went to the same pattern, which was really cool for them because they didn't have to maintain this old jQuery app anymore. So I think we see this kind of exploration more in the future. But still in the architecture, there's not a lot of support, not a lot of resources, but it's something that's clearly coming up because it's a pattern that's repeating. So in terms of research, what I plan to do, like I have these questions: what are the main benefits and limitations of CMSs, static set generators? Is it possible to address the limitations of SSGs while keeping the benefits? So it will be really cool if I could take SSG and then do something like CMS on top of that, for instance. And maybe I could, reduce these limitations of SSGs. But these questions, of course, I have to shape them, make them better, make them clearer. But that's how it goes with research. And then I guess it's going to be a constructive approach. So I've done some literature review, so I know what's out there. But in addition to that, it will be very cool for me to interview people, developers, and tool authors to find out what they think about the current situation, just to develop some kind of model of what the SSG can be, like not what it is, but what it should be. Like what's the SSG in 5 years? Of course, there's this fun part where you get to implement things. So I can show you, if you have a little bit of time, I can show you what I've been doing, because I've been playing with these ideas that might shape the future a little bit. What's the contribution to web engineering? I think it's like the first step, always understand what's up, what exists, but at the same time understand what can be. Like if you take the thing is, we get a lot of new standards, a lot of improvements. Like we saw with this like internationalization, there are new APIs coming up. Maybe that's something that will combine with the approach I have in mind. And I think with this, in the scope of this work, there will be new tooling to be created, just to bridge this gap that maybe could have a really, really powerful tool for developers that exists between the SSGs and CMS systems, because I think there's a big gap. So it will be fun to have tooling there. I could take some questions now, or I could show some projects. It's up to you.
All right. Do we have any questions from the audience?
That seems like a no.
Yeah, it's a no.
I think there should be at least one. So come on, you can do it. I trust you. Okay, still no.
Yeah. Okay. So it means that people are maybe Yep. Sorry.
I think we are having a delay because I didn't say anything.
Yeah. So maybe you have to repeat what they ask, otherwise it doesn't work.
They didn't ask anything, so yeah.
Okay. So I will show you some things. I think like now people are confused or something, so I will show you some things. So let's consider this toy project, Gustwind, I started doing last year, because what happened? I did this. This was many years ago, like 2015. I started around when Gatsby was starting. I did the generator for React. I had some ideas right, but at the same time I had some ideas wrong. but that's how it is. So you do something, and then some things work out. Some those. And I guess the biggest good thing was that I was using Webpack, but it was also the worst thing because sort of when you have Webpack in your project, it's really difficult to remove it, and it's sort of live with it. So then last year I wanted to learn something about Deno. It's if Node.js was invented today, it would look like this because it's the same person writing Deno, Rindal, than as Node. So he sort of fixed his mistakes here, and you get a really great baseline for development. So it's based on TypeScript, and it's doing a lot of things right. It's really nice to develop with Deno. So then I had to learn more about Deno, and if it's a good tool, then I started writing a static set generator because I wanted to fix some of the mistakes I did in my earlier work. So then I started Gustwind, and you can see here the point is that it takes Twend. This is sort of a version of Tailwind. It's just I like it a little bit more because it's very light. It has a good runtime, and so it takes Markdown, but copy anything, takes JSON, TypeScript, and then it goes through the tool, and you get HTML, JavaScript, so CSS, HTML, and so just what's why to write another tool? Well, I told you I wanted to learn Deno, but at the same time I wanted to play with some ideas. Like, what if everything was JSON? So my route definition is JSON. It has support for expansions, so you could give it a directory of files, generate routes out of that. I mean, it's a tool of my dreams. It's something that's really, really good for me to use, and it's extremely fast. And I took the best ideas from React and from other environments. So everything is based on components. You can do your own component library. This kind of things. It has support for like this data source issue, which is always a big in static site generation, that you want to pull data from somewhere. Can do transforms. They can do layouts. It's all recursive and stuff. And it feels a little bit weird at first because you're writing a lot of JSON. But at the same time, I figured that if somebody wants to write JSX or HTML, they can generate JSON out of it. So it's a good intermediate language. But the coolest thing is that when you have JSON, you can start doing stuff or nice things on top of it. So here's the website, and let's say I wanted to change something here. I could do it like this. Could go here and start changing things. Do editors, do fun stuff. Maybe I do like let's do red background here, and maybe do some padding. And here, this class is could expand into a nice editor for these attributes. And what I could do, I could really enable people to modify the content of the website, because what I can very easily do, I can connect this to, like, if I push it to some database over like Cloudflare system, then I could essentially do the entire website on the web without an editor. So I could have a starting point, and as I start doing changes, I commit and save. I can do the entire website with the content of the web. So I have something that's like a mixture between a content management system and a static generator. So I have like take some ideas from the both, end up in the middle, and then you get something like this. There are some constraints, of course, but I think if it's a compromise always. Then one of the things I had to invent or develop before Gustwind was Sidewind. So this is the state container, which you can check later. So you can even use it with React. We use it on React Finland side. But it lets you push state to HTML and access it and do those things with state. So it solves one problem. In terms of other tooling, you could check out Isles. I think it means is French for islands. So it's implementing this island architecture. And it actually works with React. I think you can integrate React with it. And it's more it's more, let's say, more mainstream. It looks like a tool that other people could use as well. And out of tooling, I can mention Astro, which is another tool that's providing support for islands architecture out of the box, and you can use React with it. And it's moving fast. And I think they have a lot of venture capitalist money, so likely it will become something like Next.js in a couple of years. But so do we have any questions now or not?
Oh, we have one. Yay!
This question is for you and anyone else here. We've been talking about different rendering paradigms. We have SSG, SSR. Now we have islands architecture and whatnot. Is there like, you mentioned doing research on this. Is there like a survey that has been done recently that kind of looks at these different approaches, paradigms, and maybe compares them? And we have some case studies. You mentioned Etsy, for example, with the islands architecture. For someone who's interested in getting an overview, where would you point them to?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That actually, what I found out during my this initial research, I found out that there's a lot of content about the CMS systems, and that there's some content about like Next.js and so. But there is some kind of clear gap in the scientific side of things, at least, about these things. So I wasn't able to find so much content, especially about the static site generation. I think there was one master's thesis or something, and there's some random books. But I think you're really missing a great resource related to this. Now that it came to my mind, let me find one article about this hydration. Find it. Not this one, but the hydration. I think there's one picture that will blow your mind. I hope. Because when you think about it, the way we do hydration on the current web with these big frameworks and everything, it's completely insane. Because you're doing so much work, you're running so much JavaScript that it's waste. If you want to learn about this topic, find this article. Hydration is pure overhead, because there is Misko Hevery. You might know this. I mean, you might know this developer because he's the one that gave us AngularJS, or he's the one that punished us with AngularJS. It depends on how you take it. But now he's sort of trying to get us forgive him, and he wrote Quick. And Quick has a lot of these ideas that feel like why didn't we do this before? Because it makes complete sense what he's discussing here. So instead of downloading a lot of JavaScript, let's be a little late. This will be a little bit lazier. This will work later, and we should hydrate as late as possible. So it's sort of the way I see it is that now we live at very interesting times, because we're sort of reshaping the web. We're reshaping web development. And it can be that in 5 years, we look back and we say that, why did we use React? It's so complex, it's so big, doesn't make any sense. Of course, now it makes a lot of sense, but these things change. So that's why it's very interesting to research these things, because I can see that we're going back to the old web, but with a twist. So we take the modern techniques, but built on this good foundation we have.
Okay, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we could. Let's call it a night, should we? So thank you. Let's give a big hand to Juho.